As this afternoon, we will discuss Lesson 2, Content and Contextual Analysis of Selected Primary Sources. And the source that we are going to analyze this afternoon was the first voyage around the world. And this first voyage around the world was written by Antonio Pegafetta. Now, who was Antonio Pegafetta? Antonio Pegaveta was one of the members of the Magellan expedition. He was actually the chronicler of the expedition. But if we are going to check the life story of Antonio Pigafetta, then his life was actually shrouded in darkness. He was said to have been born in the 15th century in Venice, Italy, but we were not as certain as to the date when it was. Some would tend to say that it was in 1491, while others say it was in 1480. Pigafetta was among the 18 survivors of the expedition who were able to return to Spain. But of course, if you're going to check the list of the names of the Magellan servants, the name Pigafetta there was not recorded. Instead, what was recorded there was Antonio Lombardo. Now, it's because uh, he was born, or his country was in Lombardy in Italy. Now, apart from that, when he returned to Spain, he tried to publish a complete or a detailed account of the expedition. However, he was not able to do that because he could not find a financier who would pay the deposit required for printing. That was because there were already two people, Maximilianus Transylvanus and Peter Martyr, who was able to publish the account of the expedition ahead of him. But these two people were not actually members of the expedition. Where did they get the idea or the detail of the expedition? They got it from the other survivors. Remember, there were 18 survivors. Even Rizal doesn't know about the work of Pegafetta until he was able to see a copy of the Italian text in the British Museum, wherein during that time Rizal was actually copying the work of Morga or annotating the work of Morga. He even asked Del Pilar to find a Filipino who could translate the work into Tagalog or Spanish. Now, the task of translating the work of Pigafetta into Italian, from Italian into English, was through James A. Robertson. It was James A. Robertson who translated the Italian text into English. That's why we have it, we know it now because of that translation. Now, we have here, or I have here, you can see here an excerpt of Antonio Pigafetta's Primo Viaggio Intorno al Mundo. Now, what the excerpt only contains events from the time that Magellan reached our country on March 16, 1521, until the time that the remaining men of Magellan left the country on May 1, 1521. Now, we will try to have an overview of the expedition. We will start with March 16, 1521. It was the time wherein Magellan and his men sighted the island of Samar. They were able to see Samar Island on March 16, 1521 after they have a stopover in Latroni, where in Latroni, the island of Latroni was actually located in the present-day Guam, where they were robbed there. Some of their merchandise were taken by the people of Latroni. That's why they call the islands there as Latroni or Ladrones, or the island of thieves. Now, after seeing the island of Samar, on the next day, they were able to land on an island, and that uninhabited island was known as Humunhun. Now, they stayed there in Humunhun from the time that they landed on March 17, 1521, and on the Monday afternoon of that, March 18, they saw a boat coming towards them. There were 9 men who went to the boat, and of course, They were able to communicate with those men, and the Magellan, seeing that they were reasonable men, he ordered food to them. And of course, since they have nothing else, they made signs that they are going to bring umay or rice and coconuts and other articles of food within 4 days. Now, those people became familiar with the group of Magellan, and they came from the island were known as Suluan. Okay? Now, when they returned, of course, they exchanged their merchandise with the natives, and the island where, as I mentioned a while ago, where the island where Magellan and his men stayed was the island of Humonhon. But apart from the name Homonhon, they gave another name to that island. They call it Aquada, Taliboni, Signale. They call the island as the watering place of good signs. It's because they were able to see signs of gold there. Apart from that, there were other things that they were able to see there. Now, apart from that, the islands of the districts where they were, those group of islands that they saw in summer and the other islands near summer, they call them as the Las Islas de San Lazaro, or the archipelago of San Lazaro, because they were able to discover those islands on the Sabbath of Saint Lazarus. March 25, they were on the point of weighing an anchor, and they tried to travel. They are preparing to travel when something had happened to Pigafetta. He slipped, and he fell into the sea. However, he was rescued by a small boat. And after that, on that same day of March 25, they shaped their course toward the west-southwest between four small islands until they reached Masawa on March 28, 1521. They saw two balanghays, wherein in that two balanghays, the two kings. There were two kings there. The name of the other king was Raha Shago, and the other king was Raha Kulambo. When Magellan was able to see the two kings, the king came to Magellan with 8 men, and they embraced each other, or they embraced the captain, and where the captain gave them some merchandise also. Then after that, they have what we call kasi-kasi, or blood compact. Now after that, of course, Pegafetta was able to talk with the two kings, wherein he was able to ask one of the kings, Rahasyago, and he was able to learn that Rahasyago was the king of Butuan and Calagan, where Butuan and Calagan, there is what we call abundance of gold. Magellan was able to establish friendship with the two kings. That's why they have kasi-kasi, or the blood compact. Raha Kulambo was the king of Masawa, while Raha Shago was the king of Calagan and Butuan. Now, the most important thing that happened there in Limasawa actually was the Easter Sunday Mass. And that Mass happened on March 31, 1521. Now, there were preparations that were made in the Mass, and after the Mass was offered, the kings went forward to kiss the cross as the men of Magellan did, including Pegafetta. Then they elevated the body of the Lord. After that, there was a communion, and Magellan even arranged a fencing tournament. Now, another important thing that happened in Masawa was the planting of the cross, and the cross was even planted in one of the summits there. Now, after the planting of the cross, Magellan even asked where they could get the best food. And of course, one of the two king replied that in that island, in that particular district, there were three islands: Ceylon, Cebu, and Calaghan. Or Cebu was considered to be the largest among the three islands and the one with the most trade. That's why Magellan asked if the two kings could give him a pilot that would show the way. Now, of course, Raha Colombo agreed that he is going to give one of his men to serve as pilot. However, in the evening of that, he changed his mind uh, because he said that he wanted to be the commander of those pilots that would show them the way going to Cebu. Becoming the commander of the pilots, he also asked Magellan if he could send some men to help them in their rice harvest so that the work could be done sooner. Magellan sent men to help. What happened was the kings actually ate and drank so much that they slept all day. That's why the work started the next 2 days after. Now, uh, they prepared to travel, going to Cebu. But before that, Pegafetta tried to describe the way of life of the people of Masawa. They remained actually in Masawa for 7 days. Then after that, they went to Cebu. They arrived in Cebu on April 7, 1521. They entered Cebu, passing many villages where we saw many houses built upon lugs. That's how Pegafetta described the place. Then, of course, when they reached the city, they found a vast crowd of people together with the king, all of whom had been frightened by the mortars. Now, the interpreter told them that that was the custom when entering into such place. Actually, it was, according to Magellan, it's a sign of peace and friendship. Now, of course, the king and all his men were reassured. That's why they were able to establish friendship also. Magellan and the king of Cebu was able to establish friendship, which actually culminated with a mass baptism. In that particular sense, apart from exchanging goods or merchandise, scheduled a mass in the morning of April 14, 1521. There was the mass baptism, and of course, in that baptism, Raha Humabon was baptized as Don Carlo. The prince was baptized as Don Fernando after the emperor's brother, and the king of Masawa was baptized as Johanne, and another chief was baptized as Fernando. The Moro that serves as the interpreter of Raha Humabon, baptized as Don Carlo, was baptized as Cristoforo. Now, apart from the 500 men who were baptized before the Mass, there was also another Mass baptism wherein in that particular baptism, the Queen of Cebu was baptized as Johanna, and the wife of the daughter, the daughter of Johanna, who was the wife of the prince, was named as Caterina, and the queen of Masawa was baptized as Elisabetta. And there were other 800 souls, including men, women, and children, that were baptized. Now, the most important thing that happened after that is the queen was actually fascinated with the child Jesus. That's why the captain, knowing that the queen was very much pleased with the child Jesus, gave it to the queen of Cebu, telling her to keep it in place of her idols, for it was in memory of the Son of God. Now, there were many villages in the island, and among the other villages was named Mactan or Matan, wherein the chiefs of that were Sula and Lapu-Lapu. Now, one important thing happened on April 26, 1521, when Sula, one of the chiefs of Mactan, sent one of his sons to present 2 goats to the Captain General, that was Magellan, and to say that he would send him all that he had promised, but he had not been able to send it because of Lapu-Lapu. That's why what happened is that Sula requested to Magellan to send only 1 boatload of men so that they might help him fight against Lapu-Lapu. Sending only 1 boatload of men, Magellan decided to send 3 boatloads. Magellan was among those men who went to Mactan to fight with the men of Lapu-Lapu, and there were 60 of them, in contrast with 1,500 men of Lapu-Lapu. Of course, what happened after that is uh, when they were fighting, Magellan uh, tried to call the attention of his men to cease firing, but they were not able to hear that. That's why the natives saw that they were shooting their muskets to no purpose. What Magellan did was he sent his men to burn the houses of the natives to terrify them. However, instead of be terrified, when those natives saw that their houses were burning, they roused to greater fury. An Indian hurled a bamboo spear into the captain's face, but Magellan was able to kill him. Then Magellan, while trying to lay a hand on a sword, Magellan could draw it, but halfway, because he had been wounded in the arm with a bamboo spear. That's why when the natives saw that Magellan could not really move properly, they hurled themselves upon him, wherein one of the natives wounded him on the left leg, that caused Magellan to fall face down. Immediately after that, what these natives did was they rushed upon him with iron and bamboo spears. Antonio Pigafetta closed this by saying that they killed our mirror, our light, our comfort, and our true guide. That's what happened to Magellan. Of course, the Christian king would have aided the group of Magellan, but the captain or Magellan charged him that he would not leave his balanghay. Now, after the death of Magellan, Raha Humabon sent a message to the people of Mactan asking them for the body of Magellan and other men. But they would not give that body of Magellan and his men because they tend to believe that that would serve as their memorial. They wanted to keep it as a memorial. Now, the famous battle happened on Saturday, that's April 27, 1521. That was a day holy to Magellan. But what happened was he was killed on that day that was considered to be holy to him. The day after that, May 1, 1521, the remaining men of Magellan departed Cebu and went to the Moluccas Island. Okay, now those are the things that happened to Magellan in his men here in the Philippines. Magellan, some would tend to say that Magellan was not able to fulfill the circumnavigation of the world because he died here in the Philippines, particularly in Mactan. And some would tend to say that the task of circumnavigating the world was given to the success of circumnavigating the world was given to Juan Sebastian de Elcano. But try to understand, Antonio Pegafetta was among those 18 survivors who were able to return to Spain. Antonio Pigafetta was able to tell us in detail the things that had happened in the Philippines during the time of the expedition of Ferdinand Magellan.